Hello, welcome to the birthday show for the Square Base Show. It's Val, it's me, and it's been 1 year of being Square blessed. Hello, and welcome to the show.
Oh, we are so Square blessed, Rob.
So Square blessed. Birthday show. Birthday show.
Birthday show.
And as you can see, Val dressed up in his finest. He does indeed look like a young Tom Selleck or a very athletic Tom Cruise.
I think Tom Cruise is. I mean, if there's a lot of things about old Tom, but I think athletic is a fair thing to say. I mean, the guy could run fast. There's no doubt about it. He's made like tens, perhaps hundreds of millions of dollars by just running fast. There's all kinds of track athletes that are like, why didn't I just become a movie star?
Yeah, I know. I agree. And also go through several really messy divorces. Anyway, let's move on from Tom. And today's show is going to be a show, I mean, mainly celebrating us. But truth be told, it's because... Our favorite topic. It's because it's been a year. It's been a year, ladies and gentlemen, since we launched Square based, and we wanted to make a video to say a special shout out and thank you, and also I thought a little bit of retrospective, have a little bit of a look back ourselves about how we feel about what we did, what we can do, and what we could do in the future, and so those sorts of things, which I think could be good. Jumping us off, Val, a year, so it's actually not been a year, right? That's a lie.
More than a year. Well, we had a soft launch.
Do you want to tell people about the soft launch?
The soft launch started. We can have a second, but we have two birthdays. But we're actually 2 years of Square Based ish, or the Warhammer Thursday show on Honest Wargamer streams, which I think is how we started, and that was January 24th, 2023, which, believe it or not, will be 2 years ago on January 24th, 2025. And then it took, I guess, probably 6 months being like, Rob, we should start the channel. And then, boom, 1 year ago on November the 6th, 2024, Rob's ADHD flipped into hyper-focus mode. He went critical and created basically every single element that has become the Square Base show in probably a just sweaty, 1 week, all of the assets, the channel, the logo, all that stuff.
Excuse me, like my prints, I also don't sweat, just be clear.
At any rate, there was a supernova of activity, and boom, the channel exploded. And we've been having a blast on YouTube as an independent venture ever since. It's been really fun.
It's been super fun. Yeah, it was really cool.
My favorite episode, I think my favorite episode might still be the first episode. Which was a little bit of deep lore for you guys. I had burned out on 40K and had basically started playing 8th edition fantasy as both a form of I was really into it, but also as a form of protest. And Rob was getting really excited for Old World, saying it's going to be the biggest game that Games Workshop's ever released. Yet to be seen, but could be. And I was like, oh my God,
it's trending up.
It's still trending, period. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had basically spent the previous 2 years being alone with being a lone wolf, but also alone with Warhammer Fantasy, specifically 8th edition. And I used to call it it was like wandering around an abandoned amusement park. But I had been spelunking in a lot of defunct forums, and I was visiting all these old YouTube channels and podcasts and things. So but I had no one to talk about it with. And so if you go back to the first episode of Old World Thursdays, you will have a version of me freshly back from the last time I will ever fucking stream the LVO. And the only thing I'm mad about is that I didn't have my mic set up again. So I'm on a tinny, awful headset. And I just yell at Rob for about 2 hours about the history of Warhammer Fantasy as I had come to understand it. And some of it's actually true. And still one of my favorite episodes.
Well, we should maybe actually talk about what our favorite episodes were and are. But yes, the thing about Square Base, I think it's a good question. I'll ask myself the question. Why did you want to get so deeply into it, and how do we end up here? If it's okay to like talk about that. And it's truthfully because when I got into Warhammer via Warhammer Fantasy Battles. That was my choice when I was around. I'd never played as a kid, so I was never like the kid guy like who then ended up like getting back into it later. So that was never my thing. The only early influence that I have got is obsessively playing Warhammer Dark Omen on the PlayStation 1.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
with Bernhardt Firefinger, whatever his name was. So that was me, and then like I'm a like a 4X map guy when I play like computer games. So like that's one of my things. So this like tickles all of my pickles in as a tabletop game.
I'm not sure if you've ever covered this, but so like if you weren't like I know that you were a doorman, you lived in you were a club promoter, you were a cool guy, I often call you the Artful Dodger of Nottingham.
None of those things. Okay.
If you ever visit Nottingham with Rob, he literally knows every single person who lives in that town and asks them how their mom is doing as he walks down the street.
I'm just nice. I like to be friendly.
It's wonderful. It was wonderful. But so like, how did you find Warhammer? Because it seems to be far removed from your lived experience. What was your first spotting aside from Dark Omen?
Okay, listen, number one, I've read books in clubs. So, like, I'm a nerd through and through. That's important. But it comes from playing World of Warcraft with my friends, who then so I guess I really do still have the same origin story as everyone else. They played Warhammer as kids, and they were like, all right, mate, should we go to the Warhammer world? And I was like, what's that? And where I did live at that point was, I'm gonna say it was like a 4-minute taxi. So like it's just down the road. So we went, and this was before the new Warhammer museum. So this is the old one. And then we looked around. I was like, this is cool as shit. And I was like, I love this. We walked around, and then a couple of my friends came over, and we played some games on the table, which was cool. And then I was like, yeah, cool, I'll get into this. And I bought an army, and then that's my origin story as a content creator. Yeah, because my origin story as a content creator is because I kept getting my ass kicked, and I was like, how do I win? And then I went online, and people were like, don't even worry about winning. It's the fun we had along the way. And I'm like, I don't really find it fun getting my Ogre's Purple Sun every game. So I was like, I'm missing something. What am I missing? And also at that point,
lower initiative.
Yeah, yeah. Also at that point as well, like the doughy-eyed nature of like wargaming, which is something I try very hard to like disassemble now, is I walked into this fucking factory, man, with this giant shop that was a castle and a bar, and I'm like, holy fucker, this must be like the most professional thing. Like, I bought this book, I'm like, wow, everything in this book, this will be rock fucking solid coming out of these people. And then it turns out that's a lie, and it's like a poorly sellotaped together minimal viable product. But anyway, that's where my love came. And then I played all the time, and I became insanely obsessed. Like, I bought my first army, painted it up, and then immediately was like, oh, my friends don't have a lot of armies, I'll buy another army. And then I was like, oh, well, they don't have that army, I'll buy the other army. And then I was like 10 armies deep very quickly. So yeah, very excited about it. That's my OG story. If that helps.
Dude.
Do you want to tell me yours?
Warhammer Fantasy was it was like, but this was going way back. Fantasy would have been in 5th edition, so this is before it got all grimdarky, red and blue era, sort of mid 90s kind of a thing. I would have been like, I want to say 12, 13-ish. And a friend of mine actually got the 40K starter set, and I played 40K with him. And then I had another group of friends, and I had mentioned this game that I played with him. It was wicked. It was this awesome game. It was Warhammer 40,000. And then one of those kids, who I still know, is a great guy, and I try and rope him back in all the time, but he refuses. But he said, no, that's the dummies game. You don't play Warhammer 40K. What you want to play is Warhammer Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first Games Workshop game I truly played was actually Warhammer Fantasy. I started an Empire Army when it was just made of pewter. I was a kid who was lucky enough to get money for lunch. And so I would not eat lunch and I would save up about $20 a week and buy one blister pack. So I built an Empire Army, one blister pack at a time. And then, so we played. He used to beat the shit out of me with his undead army at the time before the wet and dry undead were separated. And that's sort of where I got. But yeah, my first love was fantasy. And then I forgot it because in 1998, Andy Chambers releases the opus that is Warhammer 40K third edition.
I met him the other day.
Andy Chambers, he was one of my original like White Dwarf Warhammer heroes, and he loved orcs. And also, actually, I always forget this stage. Gorka Morka drops, I want to say in like 97, just before third edition. And Gorka Morka has that vibe of like the new, like what Games Workshop orcs in 40K became. Gorka Morka is sort of where they start. And at least that's how I remember it. And so we all got in. So there was a group of about 4 of us that really got into 40K, and we play in the summers and stuff. And then standard story, like universe. Actually, here's a little side point of why I stopped playing Warhammer 40K. Because it was roughly like the last year of university, last year of high school, going to university. And I remembered it as like kind of being like ashamed of it. And there was genuinely a bit of that. No one ever made fun of me for playing Warhammer, but for whatever reason, I felt this deep sense of like, oh, this is too much. Like, this is too nerdy. But it was only recently that I remembered the real reason I stopped was that I felt that if I kept playing it, I would never be able to like get good enough grades in high school, and that I wouldn't be able to, because I just get so consumed by it. Like Warhammer, for whatever reason, gets its hooks into me, and it's something that just like I think about it all the time. You know, like I want to like tinker on army lists. I want to, build some models. I want to play specifically. I want to play the game a ton. And so I actually kind of quit it. I was, previous to this starting, I was talking to Chad about my addiction to nicotine. And it's interesting to think that Warhammer was an addiction that I did quit for a very long period of time. And then it wasn't until I was very, very bad at video games, first-person shooters, specifically Battlefield 3, and losing at that constantly, that I Googled 40K and fell down the rabbit hole once more. But yeah, it was actually like sort of a I need to like be serious about my life, and I had to stop, which is kind of interesting when I reflect on the last 10 years of my life where I haven't stopped, Rob.
Me either, buddy. Me either. Yeah. So that being my origin story, me being like, this is cool, and then obviously I went on to play a load of games, and then when the world blew up, it played Age of Sigmar and stuff. But with it coming back, or at least like the hope and promise of it coming back. Because initially I was against it. Like very, very first ever announcement, I was like, no. And that's mainly because like I was like, I was so mad when it did flip that like because I was mad. I was like, fuck you. You've like ruined everything I just got into, like all of these armies, all this stuff, all this money. You've got rid of it all, which I'm sure is everyone's feelings, and everyone's got that same sort of feeling. So then when they were like, we're bringing it back, I'm like, well, what the fuck was all that for then? Like, you know what I mean? Like that felt rubbish. But obviously, as time has gone on, I've really understood that. And I really do think now that we are so lucky that something that I really loved and do love now is now in the hands of some actual creatives who are super excited about being creatives, even though they work for a shit company. All companies are shit, as an FYI. But that's great. And actually, like, it's more than I could have hoped, because even when I was into it in 8th edition, I was like, I never expected us to be plumbing the past. And then obviously also Total War was able to keep that flame going for all that time and has also expanded it. So, we've got this new thing, this old thing that's new, and I get to, like, I feel like I'm at the beginning of exploring it yet again, which is fun. So like the reset, obviously a horrible experience for so many people, me included. But
you're talking about like end times and the switch to AOS.
Yes, sorry, yeah, I should have been more clear. Exactly. Yeah, and now I feel like, do you know what? Actually, this is kind of, I don't know. Like I'm someone who like always tries to look on the good things, and I'm like, yeah, fine. Like it was shit. It's still the same company. Fuck them. But like, it's awesome. And I'm super happy it's back. But when, yeah, so that was about a year before it launched. I said, you were playing Fantasy Battles, and we still talk so regularly, and like we did shows together and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh, like, I think this is going to be huge. What happened? It was something happening on stream. Because if people who watch only the YouTube videos don't know, I stream Monday to Friday every, like, through the week. And then during COVID, we streamed every day. We did like a 550-day streak, right? The stream streak, right?
The stream streak.
And I was doing a show, and it must have been even before January, and something came up, or someone was talking about the old world, or maybe you and me had talked. And the next day on stream, I was like, chat, it's going to be fucking huge. I can't remember what the button was in my head that flipped. And I was like, this is going to be massive. And everyone was like, no, you're dumb. And I was like, no, bigger than 40K. They were like, you're a dumb bitch. And I was like, dumb. Yeah, super dumb. And I was like, and I was just convinced. And I was like, and it's kind of like when I used to do club stuff, and I was like, I would be like, we're going to do this sort of night because that's what people want. And people are like, that's weird. You can't do that. I used to do a rock and roll and Motown night, which is super weird that we had 1,000 18 to 24-year-olds go into a rock and roll and Motown night. They were like, people were like, what? Like, I was like, it's anyway.
This stuff's just good, man.
Yeah, this stuff's just good. Anyway, so that was it. And then you and me spoke, and we were like, let's go and let's start talking about this. This would be really fun. Because I think I was talking about it for a bit on the shows before you were like, let's fucking do this together. This would be great.
Well, I think you did one Old World Thursday, and I caught wind of it, and I then invited myself on the show to always be on the show.
Forever and ever.
I was definitely the rescue dog that did not get out of the car. As soon as you actually did do a Old World Thursday show, I was like, I'm there, and I'm there forever. And so yeah, I think it's cool that we vamped as well. Like basically, we were doing shows probably every other week. We probably did at least every other week for almost a year. Because also, what was beyond like our enthusiasm for it, what we were also considered crazy for was thinking that this thing was going to come out when it came out. I think that.
Oh yeah, people said that we were crazy.
Yes, yeah. That it would release within any sort of a reasonable time zone. And we, in fact, I think I, based on my gut feel, and you, based on your just knowing everybody feel, thought very strongly that it was going to drop in 2023. And we did miss that, but only because things got delayed and got pushed into January, the worst possible launch window that you could drop something, January, 6th? So yeah, it was so much fun, for that whole year, all that hype and anticipation, and also just sort of talking about what made fantasy awesome and why we were so tuned into it. Because I think one thing you referenced there, and why I think we thought that this was going to be a really great thing, was Warhammer Total War, which, especially during the pandemic, I was a big fan of the Total War franchise to begin with. And one of the great ironies of the end times is that, they had signed this deal to create a Total War Warhammer Fantasy franchise prior to the decision being made to end the tabletop version of it. And then they stopped supporting the game just as the single greatest marketing tool that you could ever have for a tabletop game, which is a really good 4X style, being a strategy game for the computer. Perhaps the one of the best franchises, period, for those types of games in Total War, was suddenly supporting Warhammer Fantasy, and all of a sudden there's no product that matches that on GW's shelf. It was really kind of one of those classic GW moves. And
same as me walking into that building doughy-eyed. I was like, these guys have got their shit together.
But I think one of the reasons why fantasy is so sustainable, and why Old World feels like it hasn't obviously it doesn't have the same momentum it had on launch day back in January. That's true. But I mean, just judging by the amount of people who still come back and watch our show, and we a lot of times we're talking about crunchy deep stuff. People who are still engaging with the channel, is that there is a definite high tier of engagement with this world that doesn't necessarily exist for a lot of other properties, including Games Workshop games. Certainly in the online sphere, and I just think that there's just so much of a potential audience out there because of things like Total War and the fact that this is a game that has existed for over 40 years in some form or another. And Old World kind of represents that new GW edition of a game that they never got. Back when 40K was getting sort of redone with 40K 8th edition. What was that, 2017? And also even AOS getting retooled with the General's Handbook and responding to the feedback of the player base and all that kind of stuff. Fantasy, meanwhile, which kind of died on the vine because I think it really just genuinely, they didn't know what to do with it and it wasn't supported, never got that new pass, and never had people who were it felt like a game that no one was really carrying the banner for. And now we have SDS and the designers and the team that's working on it, clearly really wanted this to happen. And for all of its foibles and its shortcomings, Old World just feels like something that is like a genuinely loved thing that has been created. And I think that's awesome. And it's got an audience out there who are primed through Total War and through playing years ago, maybe to pick it up. So that bodes well, I hope, for the future.
I think it bodes really well. We did a bunch of shows leading up to the launch. Then when launch popped off, and obviously it was a super awkward time. It was like Christmas and everything was coming out, and then truthfully, that's an incredible dump. And I'm sure it's true for everyone who's watching this. Let us know your experiences if you could down below, because when we got the info as content creators, you're like, okay, right, there's an entire rule book to read and internalize, and it's not an easy rule book. Then there's multiple different game books and army rules and armies and stuff. You're like, that's a lot.
The whole game.
There's the whole game. Rob. There's a whole game. It's a lot. It's a lot. And that got dumped, and that was a frenzy of trying to make videos that were high end and a bunch of other stuff. Can I tell you my favorite video from that time period actually was when I got to go to the open day. The open day happened. So that was super fun, and very much I guess when we read the YouTube comments and all those other things, it feels like I was the community returned. The community was already there, but it was just kind of a real flag in the ground moment. And if no one has gone back and if anyone wants to go back and watch that video, please do. But the quick TLDR is that I went to the open day for the Old World at Warhammer World, and I got there at 7 a.m. Queued up with Annie from Bad Squiddo and Andy from Andy 2D6, and then we were there, and then we were maybe, I don't know, 30th in the queue at that point. I ordered a takeaway coffee to the queue, and everyone in the queue was like, "You're a genius." And I was like, "I am a genius. That is the smartest thing I've ever done." Right? Everyone in the queue was like, "He's on." I was like, "I know," but by the time doors opened at 9 or 9:30, the queue was out of Games Workshop's complex. It was down the road, but we stayed in there for most of the day. I got to do a practice game. We got to check out all the new art and the new the old minis and stuff. And then we were still there at 4 in the afternoon, and the queue was still 1 in, 1 out that day, and everything got rifled off the shelf. I remember it was like those old videos of the Black Friday sales where people are just give me some cards.
Yeah.
It was actually a really incredible moment. I wish there were more open days / and that's what you get from events, right? That's what an event is. It's everyone gets together. So that keeps that burning fuel alive. The same way that event did. But it was pretty magical, and I wish there was some larger, not necessarily tournaments, but just more of a thing.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to describe it. Does that make sense? A thing.
convention, if you will, something like that. It's not living in Nottingham. Those aren't usually things that are available to me. But I've heard, Louise talking about how sort of the open day style things went back when she worked. I think she worked in Forge World.
She did.
Crazy about that.
Yeah.
Some of her favorite stuff were those types of days where they were allowed to like be out there talking with we are customers. But people who are super into the hobby. And, I think GW used to do a lot more things like that with like the Heresy Weekenders and things where you could go in and see the creatives and like the people who are just like passionate about the whole thing would get to go really like nerd out. And you'd also get to see the people making it nerding out about their stuff too. And hopefully they got to feel the love.
Not at the open days nowadays. Which is sad. Which is sad.
Yeah.
So over the past year, and thank you everyone, by the way, I think it's probably we should do that as well. We should do a massive thank you to everyone who's joined us on this journey. If you're watching this video now, or even if you're not someone who watches but has supported us, viewing, join us on Patreon, whatever it might be, fighting the mods on the Old World Facebook group, whatever it was. Yeah, I don't really know what that was about, but the early stages of Squarebase, the show, the YouTube channel, was I don't know what was happening. I was trying to grind out videos for overview videos, and Val was like having these like one-on-one personal wars with people in the Facebook group, which I don't really know what that was. He was like, Rob, fuck them. I'm like, who are they?
Yeah, no, it was because we had a Patreon. And so there was someone who I guess was offended that we were launching this Warhammer Old World channel. And to them, I guess they thought it was out of nowhere and self-serving. But it wasn't out of nowhere. We'd already been in the game longer than a lot of other Old World content creators. And so they had flagged my posts promoting the episodes as promotional material. And that was in violation of the T's and C's. And at the time, I thought that was a bit harsh because, we were just raw enthusiasm. And there was a lot of like, I don't know if it's any better now. I think it is. But there was still a lot of bitterness in that Old World Facebook group. And so I feel like we were a rare positive voice at the time about how this was going to go. And so I felt like it was a bit of a silly double standard. But turns out everything's okay. That Facebook group's doing just fine, and there were many other groups that we were welcomed into, also we've I don't know, not as shamelessly promoted the show since, but I think that's just because YouTube's been really, really good to us, really kind, as well as our live viewers on Twitch when we record.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky as well. Like, I think the early days of us creating content, obviously, I was able to bring a lot of the Honest Wargamer community along with me into this kind of journey. And I know that a lot of the AOS people who follow me for the AOS content I make were also Warhammer Fantasy Battle people like me. So if they didn't necessarily convert, they were at least like, I'm interested. What you got to say? So that's fun, and I enjoyed that as well. So I think that helped us at least reach more people, which I think was positive. And I do agree. I think you and me share the same values when it comes to people should go out and play games. People should go play fair games. Games should be good. Those classic things. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think there's any big takeaway lessons you've learned from making content over the past year, specifically about Old World, but maybe not, maybe just generally, is there anything you think you've taken in?
I think one thing is the truth. I think we knew before, but I think this shows in stuff going on in the world too, I think genuine enthusiasm is always welcome. I think that's something. So if you're genuinely passionate about something, there are going to be people out there who are also going to be genuinely passionate, and you can't. I don't know. I don't think you can fake that. You can't fake. You can tell when someone is just a shill, or you can tell when someone's maybe promoting or doing something that they don't necessarily believe in. And so I think the fact that we came at this from just a place of, literally, I was bullying my friends into playing a dead game because I was so passionate about it. And that was, it was your origin in a hobby that has, become your life's work so far, and what is your livelihood through your other content efforts. But I think, the secret sauce is just sharing enthusiasm, keeping people engaged. I've seen so many comments over over the months of people being like, I wasn't all that interested in this, and I actually don't give a shit about Old World, but I like you guys, and that means a lot, and that's nice because I'm glad that this has always been, despite a bad quarter, a place of like really positive and enthusiastic part of my life, and that's I think what a hobby should be. And so often when you're in a content creator grind, and I'm lucky that I just sort of just show up. Rob does essentially everything else. But when you got something, you got to talk about something every week. It can be eventually start feeling like you're, not as into it. And I think, if I've learned anything, it's just like, sharing that enthusiasm, whatever it may be, is going to get genuine reactions from people, and you're going to find your audience. And I'm glad that that's what's happened for us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Those are good lessons definitely to take on board. I learned so much from this as a project. It's unreal. I'm not necessarily talking about like the technical aspects of like recording stuff and editing stuff and uploading. None of those things. Like the thing that I like the thing that I have learned from this kind of project has been so much about people who enjoy the hobby and the game. Like it's been like, and also it's really brought into question how I feel about tournament gaming, because if you haven't never followed me about any of the Age of Sigmar stuff, like I will go to Age of Sigmar World Championships every year. So like that's the pinnacle effectively of like the competitive gaming scene. I host events. I've played in events. I've won big events. Like there's a bunch of stuff that's like, I'm very much at that like grindy like front edge of where that game is. And when I was doing Warhammer Fantasy Battle, I was getting towards the grindy front edge of where that game was as well, and I was really enjoying it. But really understanding this game, this game's also like been a breath of fresh air for me, because it's been it's been in stark contrast to where both AOS and 40k have developed, and why I have enjoyed while I have enjoyed where they've gone in some ways, I also feel like there's some wrong turns that have been taken. But with the old world returning, and especially the response from the audience, because that's where I've learned the most. I've learned that there are so many people. I'm running the events. Like I will say, even now to this day, like someone's like, "I'm coming to an old world event." I'm like, "Cool." Pretty much everyone is going to give you the soundest game of your life, and you're like, "Okay, like is it competitive?" I'm like, I mean, it's not like LVO 40k, which I've covered. Like, it's not that. Like, that's a very specific mindset. And I don't really see the people who I'm seeing in Old World or at Old World events be those people. Do I think that mindset will develop over time? Yes. Have I seen, like, incredible people? Like, my favorite game I've seen so far was when Chris Cousins played here, and he played David. And they're, like, both old friends, both old ETC, WTC, Warhammer Fantasy players, and the communication they had on the table was incredible, and it was so good. But I was still like, they're just having a nice time. Like they're very, and I don't know if it's the game or it's the people. So I've learned a lot from this project, specifically that 80 to 90% of the people are just there to have a nice time, and they would like to win some games, but they probably won't. That's okay.
I want to say, like, one reticence we had coming into this was, because we ran the original Square-Based Open in Welland, Ontario, and it was an 8th edition event, and it was people coming out again to play fantasy, and a lot of those people were folks who had hung up so a lot of them played AOS, but a lot of them were 40k players. And a lot of them, too, were just people who hadn't been out to play a game competitively in a long time. And I think in general, the internet vibes were quite crusty as well around the game. So I think what I'm getting at is we were worried about, what would it be like when people are actually trying to win an event? Would people be really grindy? Would it be a lot of gotchas? Because fantasy has a proud tradition of gotchas. It was like literally a mechanic of the game was, surprising your opponent with a magic item or, very, very powerful mechanics and spells. Like that was a real part of the game. Army lists were also not necessarily revealed. So That it was some reticence around like how are people actually going to play this when they're out there, and it was so cool to see once the rubber hit the road that people were playing it with, I think, good vibes. You know what I mean? And we talk about that, like just the way the rules are written. Probably the biggest thing I ever got wrong on the show is that I think I said that, this is going to be the tightest rule set that Fantasy's ever had. I think that in the fullness of time is not true. But that's not to say that the game doesn't work better than maybe the tightest rule set that Fantasy's ever had, which is probably 8th edition. The game just plays well, and I think a lot of that is owed to the people who are playing it and the sort of the spirit of the game that they come to the table with. And that, I think, applies to both the tryhards and the folks who are just, showing up to an event to be at an event and be around other people playing the game. And that's really, really cool. And I just, I love seeing that. I saw that at the Square-Based Open Toronto as well. I mean, we did have some chippy, contentious matches, but like one or two of them, and then after that those matches were concluded, there were no hard feelings. It didn't continue on.
Apart from you.
I'm a different situation. Yeah, people play me is a different situation. But it doesn't exist beyond that. And most of my frustration has to do with just being terrible at dealing with bad dice. That's mostly where I have a personal liability. But that is all to say that like it's been very cool that I think a lot of the lessons learned from AOS and 40K event gaming, so tournament gaming, and how you play a game collaboratively. Because when I first got into Warhammer, there was a lot of this nonsense about like the social contract and a lot of like kind of vague ideas of like what you should do when you're at a table and things like that. Transformed, I think, into some very real ways of how you play the game and how you play a game that's not exact in a competitive way, where someone does win, but it's done fairly, like you said. And that's actually one piece of content I really want to create personally, which is how to play Warhammer with strangers. And that's what hopefully you'll see in the next year from me. But yeah, I think that coming over to Fantasy was just so cool to see. And I've just been really appreciative of how the community works once it's gotten out there. And I hope like, there's a lot of people had some really bad memories of how Fantasy went out. And I see that a lot in comments and things like, I'll never go to a tournament again, or like their gaming scene got bad because like, the power gamer nonsense, like people talking about power gamers and things like that. Whereas I'm not seeing those kinds of comments, despite there being powerful things. I'm not seeing people hating the game or the player. People are just playing the game and doing their best. And that's really, I think, what you should be shooting for when you're playing things at, a match play event, a tournament event.
Yeah, the events that I've ran as well, so that's also something obviously that's happened over the past year. I've run a lot of events, and my takeaway from that is almost everyone has played stuff that they want to play, not the stuff that maybe is good, or even the stuff that is good. They haven't been too stressed about playing either. So I think that's been interesting as well. So yeah, I think all of those experiences have really taught me that there just seems to be a lot of like, quote unquote hobbyists who are just having like a really fun time. Mm-hmm. And I've enjoyed seeing that and being like, okay, just shoot for the stars, King. What are you after? And also like the hobby level's been insane as well. Like the painting, the actual armies that I've seen on the table, that's been really fun. So I found that like it's quite fun as well. Like making the content, I've then been inspired back. So like, we make the videos, like people leave comments or there's other things, but then they also engage with us back and they create that. And then, launch of, if I'm trying to do like a little bit of a timeline, like running events, but then obviously you also run SBOT as well, and SBOT 2 is currently ongoing. So now we start to bring international people in. Our first event that I held here, where you traveled over, or second event, whichever one it was. Then also Sexy Hugo was also here as well. Yeah. Right. So then we also got to know Hugo, who does Warhol really well. So now that relationship has like flourished and grown. So it's like creating the content, meeting the people, expanding the project. Like that's been really fun. And genuinely, genuinely, I think, like, you know, like looking forward, I guess talking about Square Base looking forward, but also like just generally Old World, how do you see the future of Old World? Because there's actually quite a lot of like irons in the fire and stuff that needs to get kind of like rounded off for the Old World to start to like go through the cycles of what it like of what a game would be or an event game would be. How do you feel about the Old World going forward?
I think it's super exciting. You know, as far as like a release schedule is concerned, I mean, it's interesting. There is a crew of people who are like, you know, make sure things don't go too fast, and there's another crew of people who are like, it can't go fast enough. I think something to keep in perspective is we've got 5 armies released in under a year of the game coming out, and technically speaking, we have all 16 factions. I believe there's 7. I think there's 7 in the sort of the PDF category and 9 core factions. You know, we got them all on close to day one. The legacy PDFs came out, I think, a couple weeks later. So like that's crazy. So we had a complete game out of the gates, which was awesome, and allowed everyone who had stuff or could 3D print stuff or could cobble together old models to play whatever they did indeed want. And so going forward, I would say I'm excited to see specifically the Empire launch, because I think that's going to be a big moment for Old World, because I think a large portion of the fan base really, really digs Empire. We certainly know that from Total War. And then, you know, outward and beyond that, you know, I'm really curious to see what they do, you know, once we're into the summer months. And they've released basically all the core factions, I suspect will be done by summer next year. What happens next? You know, do we see campaign books? Do we see fully new factions? Do we see nothing? Like that's a piece of me that's a bit nervous, is that once they're out of obvious content, do they keep creating new stuff and giving us different modes to play or whatever it might be? Or do we get a lull for a long time before there's a new edition? I'm hoping it's not the latter, but you know, there is sort of a void out there beyond the 9 core factions, and I'm curious to see where they take the game after that. It could be exciting, it could be frustrating. We'll see what happens. But the good news is there's just so much meat on the bone, and that with each passing core faction getting released, that brings in another sort of tranche or cohort of people who were waiting for that faction, who are excited for that one to come out so they can start playing. And certainly with High Elves and Empire still on the docket, like I think that's a big sort of influx of interest in players that's going to be coming.
Yeah. The what was your favorite of the Arcane Journals? Which is your favorite one?
Oh, without a doubt, Orcs and Goblins. Yeah, Orcs are like Orc and Goblin tribes, I guess it is in Old World. Still like super flavorful, and honestly makes it hard for me to transition to any other army, despite me having a ton of them and, you know, genuinely wanting to go do stuff. I just, it's hard to not want to like keep going back. And I had to delay a game I've got coming up with Eric's Hobby Battle Reports, Eric's Hobby Workshop, great guy. But you know, I was thinking I was going to play something else, and I think I'll trot out the Troll Horde, you know,
Get her out.
By the way, made it to the top 16 of the SBOT 2. So yeah, Troll Horde, but it's just a totally different army from the Grand Army, which is totally different from the Nomadic Wa Army. You know, like there's just so many fun modes of play for the Greenskins, which is just great. And I think even when you look at something like Dwarves, you know, it took the 2 archetypes of Dwarves and gave you some options. What about you? Do you got a favorite?
Yeah, Dwarves for me. I like Orcs and Goblins, I thought it was good, but Dwarves for me is when I was like, oh, we're writing rules. Okay, because like I talk a lot about like ludonarrative dissonance and like the difference between like rules as like rules, like the narrative and how rules really are exemplified, but like baking in like win condition changes, especially for like the Slayer dwarfs. Is like super clever, and I was like, oh, like it's really hard for someone who reviews rules, which is what I do, to read through dross most of the time, which is what I do a lot of the time. I read through a lot of like copy paste, same thing, same whatever. But as soon as I got to that, I was like, oh, okay, like we're actually getting some thought put into this. This is actually some expansion beyond what we're seeing. And I was really, really motivated by that because I was like, this is super cool. Whether or not those were like, things that had been written in the past and, just like tarted up or whatever it might be. Like I really felt like I was seeing some actual game design. And like quite often, a lot of people say, and I think this is true as well, like a game designer needs an editor because a game designer needs to be like really broad and do all this stuff. And then an editor needs to like hone them in. And maybe they don't necessarily have the editor right now and have that acumen, but they at least have the creativity. And I would much rather it be creative and unbalanced than it be flavorless and balanced.
What's amazing, and this is a big credit, is that we've had 5 of these Arcane journals, and yet none of them have tipped the apple cart. Normally what you would see with traditional Games Workshop rules writing is, people call it like rules creep or power creep is the word I was looking for. And because of the way the Armies of Infamy are written, which is they restrict the choices, so they remove choices from an army list. So literally, you can do less with your Armies of Infamy, but as the trade-off, those units do something or do things slightly different, or they unlock different features, or they unlock a cool theme. And so what you're getting is armies that don't necessarily completely dominate just because they have an Arcane journal, which also gives me a lot of hope for things like the legacy PDFs. Despite there being some pretty blatant underperformers in there, they aren't necessarily fully outclassed by armies that have Arcane journals. And that even goes down they're bringing in magical items and new options and new units, and yet somehow they aren't becoming like grand armies are still completely viable and often still, the seemingly better choice, depending on what you want to do. So the Armies of Infamy, where they could be opportunities to create these really overtuned OP, like obvious choice, go drive some model sales, whatever. What they really are thematic and provide different ways to play a given faction. And I'm really impressed with how well they've been pulled off. And even when you look at something like Tomb Kings, which is certainly, I think, proven to be pretty cooked, definitely one of the stronger factions. Even when you look at them, they're not all mortuary cults. They're not all royal hosts. They're not all Grand Army. You still see people bringing different mixes of things. And I think that's a credit to how well the Arcane journals have been written so far.
Yeah. Also, I think the format of how Old World scores, which maybe we should cover in another video, is actually really, really good as well. Okay, so been a year. Happy birthday to us. We've loved it. I got one secret announcement. I don't think Val knows about this right now. For our birthday, we have a celebration birthday T-shirt available.
Wow.
From Squarebase, if anyone's interested, which we've been working on. So here you can.
I pressed the right button. It is our birthday. It's a miracle.
You can see it here. So you've got these in 2 flavors. You've got Val Blue and Rod Bread, where you've got these some upside down. I don't know if you can see this there you go. Oh, it's on the wrong side of the screen now.
Would you look at that?
Yeah,
we have merch.
We got merch. How do you feel about the merch?
Oh man. Oh wow. How cool is that?
That's pretty cool. I think.
We did it.
Yeah, we did it. We did it. So there you go. So we got those. So I think they look fun. And you got like either one of those. So that's a fun little bit. And hopefully we can bring you some more like cool stuff in the future, which is cool. So special birthday announcement merch. Mainly I just wanted to make something that made Val happy, which is make him an Empire dude, which is we've got there. So that's cool. Empire guy. So I think it's a fun t-shirt anyway, designed by Tom. And then,
way to go, Tom.
Yeah, way to go, Tom. Great job. So there's that. And then going forward in the future, loads more videos and loads more content from us. And then a bunch of other kind of like structural things that we'd like to do, like make packs and a bunch of other stuff, which we're going to keep under our hat for now. But I think both of you and me are excited about making a lot of stuff in the future for the community, right?
Yeah, I think getting back to what we were talking about with like events, and I think with both of us being people who have come from places of like being like really passionate about like crunchy meta stuff and like what the best choices are and what the best players are doing and all that. I think with Old World, I am still so centered on events, but I'm more about just the simple act of attending and being out there with people who are passionate about this stuff too. and like seeing that excitement and playing, a bunch of games. And the result isn't as big of a deal to me as it once was. And I think that's something I'd really love to key on, and providing tools to make, both the creation of events and the promotion of events easier, and also provide maybe incentive to go to events. I think all of those things are things that I think would be valuable for the community. And it's not, some people get weird about the playing to win aspect of it. By the way, I still think that's awesome. I go to an event, I'm going to be trying hard as I can for sure, because I find that fun. But I don't know, the emphasis of like, the emphasis just feels different. I just think that I'm not as skeptical of overall prizes as I once was. I love the people who can, play, like bring an amazing looking army to the table, play it really well, and also give their opponents really good games. I think that is, that's something to shoot for. And I think if we have values, Rob, I think that's maybe one of them. Painted armies, going to events, playing as best as you can, and not being a dick about it. That might be it.
That's absolutely the vibe, 100%. Like, I literally, the place where I work in 7 days a week is a place I invite people to come and play games at the weekend. And like, I get to share those experiences for people who love and enjoy what they do. And then I get to then talk about it through the week on YouTube, which is great. But like, I would hope that everyone who watches these videos is someone who wants to build and paint and play with their armies and go to events. And the reason is because then I get to spend some time with them and experience it and be a part of that, them be a part of what we do, we be a part of what they do, because that's the thing. It's like, it is a community. And I think that's actually super nice. Shared around this cool passion of a doe-eyed moron walking into a big store one day and going, is that an elf? I love that. Or whatever it might, not elves though, obviously. But like, I think that's a nice thing. So I really enjoyed it. And I want to say thank you to you on a personal level. You've always been brilliant and have always given me the right energy. And I've learned a lot from you as well. So I want to say thank you. And then this has been fun. And let's do 10 more years. 10, say it with me, chat. 10 more years.
Well, hey, for a long time, I was just going to play Warhammer for another couple of months. Like I'm just going to play, this next event will be my last, and then I'll move on. And then suddenly I realized, all my best friends were into this stuff. All my favorite things revolved around this stuff. So I don't know if it's 10 more years, but, who knows? We'll see. We'll see, Rob.
10 years isn't even that long.
We've done 2 years without even really, like, we just barely noticed. Like, literally, while I was making my coffee this morning, I was like, holy shit. So thank you, Rob, as well, for having me along on this, and for all your support during the year that we've had. And I hope everyone who's watching
is
also very enthusiastic about what's coming up, and I hope we can keep delivering you stuff that's entertaining and fun.
All right, we're going to reduce this down. You don't seem confident. Several more months. Several more months.
Several more months.
I need you to know that I'm in it for 10 more years, so that's where I'm at. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Thanks for staying Square Blast, and also don't forget it's also your birthday, because if you've been part of our community, then it's your birthday too. Thanks for tuning in. See you soon. Goodbye.